just the whole insistence of like making somebody's story. Like it's that whole, what are they, small minds talk about people and like, you know, larger minds talk about issues or something. But it's like, yeah,
Right.
it's, can't talk about like the issues of like the criminal justice system or whatever. They just have to like freak out about this one reporter. And like, it was weird to see people I've just like never met before, never talked to them before. They don't know anything about me, like calling me by my first name, like kind of going off on me. But for the most part, it's like, just ignore it, you know. But it's just funny that people think that they know who I am, like the whole Karen thing. I'm like, okay, has the Karen thing just like
courthouse
calling everyone Karen and stuff? It's like, what the fuck, you know? And people, somebody talking about how my dad pays my rent or something. It's like, my dad died in 2003, you assholes. Like, and another thing, the idea that I'm just like some goodie. It's like, look, guys, my brother's been to prison 3 times. Like my oldest brother, I visited an Oregon State Penitentiary when I was 16 to like go visit him. Like my dad was a criminal defense attorney. I mean, the idea that I'm just like some, you know, system loving, you know, don't question anything kind of thing. It's like, what? They just have no idea what I'm talking about. But that's also just like, I just try to ignore it because the story's not about me. And I almost feel like bringing any of that up or, you know, just answering any of their questions is almost just like validating it, you know. It's like so
yeah, you have to learn how to just ignore it. Like sometimes, like for me, if you can't have fun with it, don't respond. But sometimes, you know, with the trolls, you have to respond a little bit, you know. But it's all, you know, on what you can handle. Sometimes you do have to completely just drown it out. Like, because, you know, I will say this as well, too. It seemed like at times, you know, you were painted as like the bad guy for no reason. Like, you know, there's the whole controversy about, you know, if you got, you know, 2 people kicked out the, well, I'll just say their name, Armon and Milagro, if you got them kicked out the courthouse and like, you were like, wait, I didn't even know about it. And I still blame Dennis Byron because he put that tweet out and he said, new developments coming soon and we ain't got no development.
Oh, yeah, no, exactly. And I was just like, it's like, this is a developing story. It's like, okay, if you worked at a newspaper and did that, you'd be fired. Like the bosses. Like you have to get stuff a little more confirmed before you do that. But yeah, I mean, they're just obsessed with that stuff. And that's why, I mean, that's why I found your video because I was like, I should ignore this, but it's also like there's just these weirdos making videos about me. So I'm like, I appreciate this guy not being a weirdo because like there's this one lady who's just like made a video where she's got my picture up and she's just going off on my appearance and stuff like that. And somebody, a friend who has a much bigger online presence than me, like has like almost 1 million followers on Instagram, getting all sorts of attention, told me that is always what they go for. They always go for appearance. There's like a certain crowd of like nasty people online that go for appearance. But I mean, I was just like, and then when I listened to her video, which isn't a good idea, but I mean, she's just like so full of shit. And that's what bothers me. I'm like, these people are so wrong. Can we make it cool again to know what you're talking about? Because it's like, like the coolness factor is like who can lodge the best insult. Like somebody responded to my Instagram picture the other day and they're like, you look so nerdy. Oh, burn. Oh my God. And they replied with like a little more expansion on their insult, like detailed a little bit better. It's like, okay, at least put some effort into it. But we've reached a point, it's like the Idiocracy movie that you see. And it's like, frankly, it's how Trump got elected. Like it's just focus on people and personalities and like, it's cool to insult somebody in a really good way. And it's not cool to like actually know what you're talking about, you know?
Right. And Vegas asked a really good question. She said, was the lady on camera when she was talking about Meghan's look?
And I looked around and I'm like, does she have her like in her picture? It like might be her, but it's all like weird. You can't really see it at all. It's just like, and I got a little pissed and responded and was like, you are an absolute coward. Because like, and overall I should just because somebody, that was like a couple weeks ago that I did it and I kind of forgot about it, but somebody found it and replied to it today and was like, you're obsessed, you're the one who found it. I'm like, well, obsessed with myself? Yeah, well, somebody's got to be. I'm like, I got to monitor my reputation sometimes. But when she replied, I deleted the whole thing because it's like, don't encourage him, don't interact with him. But yeah, it is weird. And it's like, kind of anything when people just start insulting your appearance. It's like, what the fuck? Shut the fuck up. Like,
right. And you know what the funny part is? Like, I was just thinking, like, it's always the people who don't show their face or hiding behind, you know, the avatar, and like they're just talking about your looks and the way you look, and you're just all like, wait, what do you look like? Like, turn on your camera and let me see you. I just feel like, and you know, I'm fine with people talking about my looks. I just want to be able to see you so we can go back and forth. You know, like I think it's unfair if we can't see your face, but you're gonna judge me for the way I look and all that stuff, you know?
Yeah, because on the one hand, some people are like, oh, don't get into the T crowd on YouTube. And you know, I'm not gonna like make my channel that, but I'm like, I'm interested in talking about this stuff. And I think it's interesting what all the different YouTubers do. And if you can have a good conversation about it, because like if I go out with my friends now and like they start talking about the Tory Lanez case, I mean, they don't really follow it and stuff. So it's like kind of good to have an outlet with people who like actually follow it and can be like, oh yeah, Rhonda Dixon, like,
right.
Her.
And you know, another thing is too, like with the YouTube, it's like if there's no problem, people will create an issue. And I think, you know, with that situation with Milagro and Armon, I think that issue was created. It was like, it was not one there. And then you have people in your ear telling you this and that. And it's all like, whoa, like, and I know for you, you're all like, anybody can reach out to me. Like, you're not one of those people like, oh, don't talk to me. You're not big, you know, you're not on my level. Like, you can literally reach out to you. And I think, you know, that was something important that you said. Like, you can always reach out to me if you have a question or anything.
Yeah, because one thing I talked to Darnell. It's your boy Darnell. I don't know if you're familiar.
Yes, I've seen that.
Yeah. And when I talked to him about it, I was just talking about gosh, what was I going to say there? I got distracted by a comment. But what did you say before that?
Oh, it was regarding you know, you always say like you can reach out to you if you have a question. Yeah.
Oh, right. Like I was just saying, the whole thing with them getting kicked out of the courtroom, because everybody is just obsessed with that. Like, I mean, maybe not obsessed, but I still hear about it. And it's like, I'm like, if anybody ever actually asked me what I think about that, I think it's kind of heavy-handed that they got kicked out of there. And I mean, it is unfair because it's like, what were they even doing other than, I mean, they were like filming downstairs or something, and they do freak out about everything. Like the woman I was saying who has the million Instagram followers, she was like called before a judge during the Harvey Weinstein trial for taking pictures in the cafeteria of like a coffee mug or something. Wow. So you take it really seriously, but also she didn't get kicked out. She was just given a warning. So them getting kicked out permanently, and it was kind of weird to me that they're able to go back. They're able to go back in the courthouse, because I don't think you can just ban somebody from a public courthouse like that, you know? But when they tried to go into the courtroom, they were told, like, I think the bailiffs are telling them that it's like the judge or something, but I just feel like they should challenge it a little bit. And one reason kind of bothers me about, and I kind of worry for like the overall state of journalism, because we have YouTubers who are legitimate media because of their following, and they have media access, but then when they get fucked over and get their media access taken away, they don't really have the knowledge or skills to like stand up for traditional journalism and be like, I have a First Amendment right to be in that courthouse. Their knee-jerk reaction is to just go on YouTube and start making hate videos about somebody for getting them kicked out. It's like, dude, you need to stand up for not only your rights, but the rights of every other journalist, and try to get back in the courtroom. Like, I mean, maybe they have, but and the way to do it isn't to go there and like argue with a bailiff. They need to they need to get a lawyer or something. Easier said than done. But also, can't they just like write a letter to the judge, or just like show up in Judge Hereford's courtroom for another hearing and like try to? It just seems like there has to be a way for them to kind of negotiate. But instead of dealing with that, they're just like, well, Meghann Cuniff's a Karen. It's like, oh, okay, all right.
Yeah, and it got totally blown out of proportion. And, you know, and I think that's also too, and this kind of goes with this question, like, you know, bridging that gap between, you know, journalists and bloggers and online personalities, like, how do we work together and like make a team, you know? And, you know, it's kind of like this thing, because like, you know, I want to ask you, like, for us YouTubers or bloggers, do journalists take us seriously, or you see us as like, oh, these little peons, or, you know, what is your perception?
I mean, I think we have to take it seriously, because like I saw the question about, you know, is it worth going to journalism school for. And I guess it just kind of depends on your own personal situation. But yeah, especially if you can go someplace that has a good college paper and get involved with the student newspaper, that's like really a training ground and where you kind of learn, you know, the fun of journalism, and it's so organic and like every story is like such a big deal. So yeah, I think there's definitely something for that, but also like it's just such a dying medium. So I think that we all have like a lot to learn from each other, and there's just so many different YouTubers. Like one thing I was reminded of when I covered Donald Trump's old lawyer John Eastman's disbarment hearing.
Getting disbarred, yeah.
Huge crowd for that. The J6 Trump insurrection crowd. I mean, almost more than Tory Lanez, like the interest, and they pay. They're all, it's like a bunch of like old housewives in Ohio who are like, you know, thank you for keeping me informed. They're like, you know, a liberal Democrat, like used to burn her bra back in the day or something. So they want to keep up on like the Trump files and stuff. So, and there's a big factor there of people doing like YouTube news reports on stuff. So I think there's a real way to like do traditional journalism, but also one thing I was bringing up was in another interview that somebody tagged online. They're like, it's weird how much she talks about him in here or something. But I was talking to a bunch of people, a bunch of like old mediators and lawyers, where it's pretty funny, and it's worth listening to the intro in the very beginning just to hear the old mediator, the way he pronounces Tory Lanez. He's like Tony Lanez or something. I mean, he like completely butchers the name, but it's a bunch of people who've never heard of this case before. So I was talking to them about legal affairs journalism in the social media era. So I was kind of introducing them to these YouTubers because I think there's so many who don't understand. It's like, no, there are people who make like a living off this, you know, it's like their full-time job to like go live and stuff. And
I know it's my full-time job. So yeah, like if you, it works.
It's not, like there's always been this in America. Like if we went back to like the early days of newspapers, you would find like the shock jock gossip talking about like the new entertainment, like critiquing new entertainers or stuff. I mean, it's completely nothing new. It's just, it's found so much success in the new era, like the entertainment journalism and entertainment reporting or entertainment commentary has found a way to thrive online. But I think traditional like news reporting, like city council coverage, it's just, you know, not as sexy, but it's also just that they haven't innovated like entertainment journalism has. Because I think entertainment reporters and people who are entertainment focused have way more of an ability to just go off on their own.
Right. And it's very like personality based too. Like, if you have a personality, people will love you. Like you could be saying the wrong stuff and people will love you as long as you know, dress it up and make it sexy. People will buy it, you know, like it is what it is. But I do think, you know, there is, even though, you know, I'm not a traditional journalist, I do want to be careful with the things I say and then the message that I'm trying to convey. Like I never want to put false information out there. And I think, you know, with having someone who does have that journalism background and then someone who might be on the more entertainment side, I definitely think there's a way we can work together, because you have worked with Neek at Night. I see somebody put her in the chat, Neek at Night, right?
Yeah, definitely. And that was, and I met her at the Tory Lanez stuff, and then she got the she got all that attention for getting the exhibits. That was, want to beat everybody on that. And then I just saw her at the next court hearing and was like, you should go to the OMG girls hearing, because I do think it's like the legal affairs journalism is just so like cut off from everybody, and the way we don't like mainstream newspapers don't cover courts enough, that I think a lot of people just don't realize that it's like you can totally just go into the courthouse and like go into the courtroom and sit down, and as long as you're not like disrupting the proceedings, you can just sit there all day, you know. So yeah, trying to spread it a little bit. And then also I just think it's interesting the medium that they have and the huge subscribers that they have. You know, I was saying at this mediation thing I did the other day that like if the LA Times with like all their layoffs and they're selling the San Diego paper, we would kill for the kind of audience that some of these lives get. So, you know, it's just how can you kind of capitalize and use the new mediums to also bring your traditional journalism and values to it, you know?
Right. I definitely like that. Yeah, I agree with you, because Just imagine, with some of the following that we have, if we were able to transcend that over to, some paper or something like that, like it would be big. So I do think
Yeah.
that there's an advantage with us, and especially with being a YouTuber, we don't necessarily have to wait or get approval for somebody else. We can just go live and put the information out there,
And there's something that it's so much more timeless when you have a print article. And if you're going to like scoop something, or if you really want to like put somebody's underwear up the flagpole, you want to have your facts like nailed down in an article. You don't want to just be like, oh yeah, I reported the news, it's a big scoop, go to minute 13 of this 47-minute video. You want to have somebody like, just, it's right there in front of your face, inverted pyramid style. And so that's what I'm trying to do with the YouTube. Like if I have a big single story, like publish the story on the website and then go to YouTube to talk about it. And then maybe do a live like once a week where I just like take questions or talk about my stories. But I want to keep it print focused, like, cause you're writing the first draft of history,
Right. And to answer this question, I know you talked about on your channel kind of like branching out on other cases, but more so like when it relates to LA, like would you ever travel? I don't know if you know of Bishop Whitehead. He was the bishop in New York that was robbed, and then now he's indicted on some charges and stuff like that. Would you ever travel for, work and stuff like that, or just LA based?
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to eventually travel, and kind of the idea with my legal affairs in trials Substack thing is that I'll just get this huge base of paid subscribers, like my friend Jessica House and Habit, and she's like traveling over to England to go to the King Charles's coronation, but right now I don't have enough for like a big travel budget. But the idea is that if I can get independent enough through YouTube, through Substack, I don't think my YouTube's ever going to be like some huge revenue generator.
You never know.
Like you got to at least try. You got to
Yeah.
And I think kind of the key is my Substack, and if I can get some support through there, like through the legal community, that kind of thing, I'd love to travel. And one great thing about it is that like if there is a ton of interest in a trial, like I hear a lot about the Jonathan Majors case, although that's not that doesn't. I think technically he's set for trial next month, but I bet it doesn't actually go to trial next month. But the Mellon case, I just want to stick to LA right now because I'm still kind of building up the base, and I frankly just don't have the budget to like travel like that. But yeah, I mean that'd be kind of a dream of mine to just be able to travel around the country. But right now I'm very like LA focused, like LA and Orange County. But this is
right.
what the stars are. Like ASAP Rocky, somebody reminded me the other day that he has an assault case that's pretty similar.
Oh yeah, he does.
There's not anything on the horizon. I think it's like early next year, but it's one of those cases. It's one of the charges where the sentence on that is like, to expect him to just plead guilty and be like, oh yeah, I'll go to prison for 6 years. Like it probably,
no.
Yeah, exactly. It probably will go to trial. So it definitely, if he goes to trial, I'll cover it. So, but it would have to be LA focused.
Okay, LA focus for now, and then later move on. Oh, someone asked about the MJ case. Well, Michael Jackson, will you be covering that? I know there's something with some of his accusers. They're going to take him to trial.
It looks like the civil case is coming back, and definitely. I kind of there's so many cases that I don't track it until like a trial actually happens. But the way LA Superior Court works with their pain in the ass press office that I'm always going off about on Twitter, they notify us about stuff like that, and it's cool. Like, send us an email by Wednesday if you want to be on the press pass list. So if I see anything like that, I'll definitely sign up for a press pass. But a lot of the cases are like, until there's an actual trial, I probably won't. There's not really like much to cover.
Right, until it actually goes to trial. That's right. Something that I did want to point out, because you actually won an award for this for the Southern California journalism, was the civil rights case with Marco Milla. He was convicted, for murder, but basically it was not, they found out that he wasn't. And they didn't check the surveillance video that would have showed that, he was at the liquor store at the time that it happened. And so, with that case, how did you come about that case?
So I actually just found that by looking at the judges' calendar, because the federal judges put their calendars on the internet, it's like two days of calendars at a time. And that's the best way to find cases, because legal journals are just filled with like shameless marketing people and PR people. Like I got some big long ass email from some PR guy from some case, and it was just like, dude, give it a rest. But I kind of prefer to find my own cases, because everybody has a spin on it. But when his actual last name is Slaughter, so he's Judge Slaughter, and he had a case from 2016, and that's what caught my attention, because I mean, it takes a long time, the court system does, but it usually doesn't take that long to have a lawsuit that's been around for 7 years. You know, it's like, what the hell is this? And you can kind of tell it was just Miller versus City of Los Angeles. You can usually tell that those are shooting cases, civil rights cases, because there's so many excessive force cases filed in federal court against the cops on behalf of the family of somebody who died. But another sign is usually the name is like Yvonne or something, because it's the guy's mother or it's the guy's sister, because you know the guy who was shot is dead. So the fact that the guy suing, I'm like, this is a civil rights case, but I'm betting it's not about a fatal police shooting, because the guy whose civil rights were violated supposedly is the plaintiff. So long story short, I looked it up in the Pacer the electronic court system, and just started like kind of fell down this rabbit hole, because the first thing that I saw was the Ninth Circuit kicking a judge off the case, which is really rare. Ever do that, but there was a judge in LA. He finally died when he was 95, but he'd been on the bench for like almost 50 years, and he was
95.
He'd done a lot of good. He's actually the judge who first desegregated the schools in Pasadena like way back in the day. But he was an old codger named Manny Riel, and he was terrible to litigants. Like he would just throw out lawsuits for no reason, and he'd throw out this lawsuit because the guy, after he got out of prison, he sued, and the judge granted summary judgment on it, and they tossed out the case, and his lawyer went to the Ninth Circuit and said that the judge erred. And so then Ninth Circuit agreed and sent it back, and actually ordered the chief judge to give it to another judge. So that's kind of what got my attention. I'm like, you got all these judges like passing around the case, because the judges don't get enough scrutiny, especially, well, none of them do, but especially
hardly ever. No, it's mostly the lawyers, or never the judges. But going back to Miller, I do want to say he did not basically, he was trying to I'm saying it wrong, but suing, so because he was in wrongly.
Yeah, and he didn't get anything. He was trying to get like unlawful imprisonment, like suing the cops, and that it was malicious prosecution, that they hid evidence, ignored evidence, and just built a case against him maliciously. And one problem was his lawyers were so bad. Like it's kind of hard to describe, but just like when you're in court all the time, good lawyers when they can do good opening statements and question witnesses. And these guys were total morons. Like somebody else in the courtroom told me she's been in federal courts for 16 years. And like his lead guy was probably the worst attorney she's ever seen. Like definitely bottom 3, like maybe the worst. So he didn't have, like very good advocates, and just the way the case was put on. But yeah, it was depressing to see the jury come back against him, because they did have this guy testify. Actually, one of the guys who was shot testified about how he felt pressured by the cops to identify Miller, and he testified against him, and he's been feeling guilty about it. But they didn't really show that the cops like unfairly pressured him. It just wasn't really there. And then it didn't help that the guy's lawyers were like total morons. So one thing I'm trying to do, I need to do a story on that, and I put it on Twitter, and it got a bunch of attention. But I'm kind of reminding myself that like the role of journalists sometimes, because one thing I say is like, isn't there some kind of state fund that this guy can go to and just get compensated for the time that he spent in prison? And as a journalist, it's like, that's the question I need to answer in my story, And so I want to talk to somebody like with the Innocence Project or something.
Right, because there has to be something like you were wrongfully convicted, and like you spent this time in jail, and now it's like, oh, well, we're sorry, but there's nothing we can do for you. Like it has to be something. But yeah, that is something to look into.
Yeah, definitely. So I want to get a story out on that soon, but hopefully somebody from the So somebody from the Innocence Project should want to talk about it, but it was depressing.
Right, right. So going back to Tory, do you think that he might not have the right lawyers for him, or this is basically a hard case in general because of everything surrounding it?
Kind of a hard case. Like I personally, like, we want to get into my opinion, think that he made a mistake going with George instead of Sean. That I think Sean obviously was looking to keep it more open-ended. Like, we don't know who the shooter was. We know it wasn't Tory. We don't know who the shooter was. It was probably Quan. But because the investigation was so bad and the rush to judgment, we just don't know. And she didn't want to do the Kelsey defense, where I mean, it just seems like that would have been a better defense to have for him. And Sean is a little more skilled because, I mean, I don't want to just like drag people unnecessarily, but somebody else, I know a lot of people in the court system, and when like the court reporters, like the transcriptionists and stuff, the people who sit there all day and listen to all this shit, they have like good insight into who's a good attorney. And you know who people think absolutely sucks? That George McDesian guy. The guy, yeah, he did some civil rights case in front of Judge G a couple months ago, and somebody said his opening sucked, his closing sucked, his witness exam sucked. It's like, when you're sucking that much, there's not a lot of room for like good lawyering to go on, So yeah,
right.
So I think Baez would have been good for trial if he'd had him for trial, but it was almost, it's just like, why does he have him now? Because he's not from California, and Baez basically admits,
right, he's from Miami, right?
Yeah. So, because when you're doing stuff before a jury, he can kind of go state to state, because that's pretty transferable, like getting up and talking in front of a jury. But when you're talking about like the specifics of state law, it's like, yeah, you wouldn't want Baez just boning up on that stuff at the last minute. You want somebody who knows something about California. So
right,
it just seems like, yeah, he's been, and right now I'm curious to know if something's going to happen next week with this counsel. Like, if it's just going to go like we heard on Wednesday, Rhonda Dixon is out. What's his name? Wellborn's going to come in, and that's it. Sentencing on the 7th.
Yeah.
Or if Lanez is going to try to go with Dixon again or something. I don't know. We'll see.
We never know. Well, Dixon kind of blamed you for the reason why she's not on the case.
Yeah,
so you met up with her in the elevator, or
it was right as we were exiting out of the courtroom. She saw me, and yeah, she was just obviously really bummed because she was excited to be involved in the case. And then Baez kind of yanked the rug out from under, and it was like, well, what did you expect was going to happen? I mean, in what she did, contacting a reporter to be like, hi, I'm Tory's new lawyer. It's like, that's been done before. I mean, Barhoma did that. I got a press release like back in January when Barhoma was joining the case.
Oh, okay.
So her problem was she just had that clash with Baez, and
right.
Baez got the upper hand by Tory agreeing with Baez and in court going with Baez instead of her. But like I said, when I was doing that live in a Lanez foot soldier was going off on me in the comments, he said that Lanez was meeting with Dixon this weekend. I'm like, oh, I hope that's true.
Or that's probably like was Dixon herself, and then she was pretending to be somebody else.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, but I was going to ask you, because Tory had mentioned you on his Instagram story. Yeah. And how was that? Because was that the first time he actually mentioned you by name, or?
Yeah, it was. Actually, I found out about, I got a DM. It was a very dire DM from somebody. They're like, I don't usually DM people, but I just wanted you to know, I sincerely apologize for the harassment you're about to endure. It's going to happen soon. And it was a screenshot of the text. And I was a little bit like, oh God. I mean, God, he has 12 million followers, but
right.
Actually, like, I got a little bit of it here and there, like some Instagram comments. By my favorite insult on Instagram I ever got, or maybe it was Twitter, it was completely random, but somebody tweeted at me, they're like, I bet your breath smells like coffee and white ass. I'm like, well, that's but I didn't even get anything that good this time. Like I got a few here and there, but one thing, I've already blocked like most of the like really, really nasty people on Twitter. Mm-hmm. So they don't really have an outlet anymore.
Right. They couldn't contact you.
Yeah, and one thing, I mean, he didn't spell my name correctly, so I think that kind of threw off the trail. But also, like, I was putting this in perspective. I'm like, it's kind of funny that his team did this because, like, yeah, I mean, I get a lot of attention for covering the trial. Like, I've got, like, my biggest following is like 70,000, it's almost 70,000 followers on Twitter, which, you know,
Yeah, Twitter, yeah.
I'm proud of that. It's nothing compared to his 11.8 million Instagram. Like, what? And I mean, so many people saw that story and were just like, "What,
Right.
Meghann? Who?" Because one thing I noticed was my personal portfolio website is MeghannCuniff.com. So if you were gonna Google just Meghann, like the way he spelled it, that would come up. So if you look at my website traffic over the month, it's like steady, jump.
And jumps, yeah.
And it's like 500 people Googled me that day because, and it's not like I got 500 nasty messages from people. It was just a bunch of people being like, who the hell is Meghann Cuniff?
Yeah, like, who is this lady?
All he really did was like raise my profile a whole lot. I bet some of his fans are super jealous too. They've been clamoring.
I wonder, was it because of the Rhonda Dixon thing, and then maybe she said something to him, and then he went off, you know?
Because in the end, I mean, it's like, what is inaccurate about what I reported? And nothing. I mean, it was all confirmed by their own people. So I said in my article, and I mean, it really, like, I think they're at least a little bit embarrassed by that whole Rhonda Dixon thing. And it's a very common emotion, you know, embarrassment. Yeah. Nobody likes to be embarrassed. It's a lot easier to channel your embarrassment into anger. So I think that's what it was, just a coping mechanism. They fired off that Instagram story. Take that. Like, well, if it lessens your, you know, channel your embarrassment into anger. And then, I mean, it's so Donald Trump-ish too. Like,
right. Well, I have to ask you this to be fair and give both sides. Was this supposed to be an off the record conversation with Rhonda, and then maybe that's where it went, or no?
Well, my understanding was it was all on the record. I mean, the email that she sent me, and then just the way the conversation started, you know, it was like, okay, like, here we go. And one thing I was at, because she was saying that she had a bunch of legal issues she wanted to explore. So I was like, what are those, you know? And she wouldn't tell me. So it's like, if it was an off the record conversation, you know, or if she thought that it was off the record, like, it seems like she would tell me and she'd just be like, don't, but she wouldn't. She's like, oh no, I don't want to reveal that yet, you know? So yeah.
Right. So she would keep some things in that she didn't want to say and then tell you other things.
Yeah. I mean, I mean, maybe, she had a lot to say. I was like, wow.
Yeah, I mean, because that's just crazy how you got blamed for it. I guess blame everything on Meghann, but you got blamed for it. But it's like, no, you talked to me willingly, right?
Yeah. And sometimes, you know, they just don't like the way they sound. Like they thought it would come out like a little bit differently or something, or, you know, I'm not sure. And going back and forth when I talked to her, like, should I just wait until after the court hearing? But there were other people reporting it, and I was getting so many DMs from people asking about what this court hearing was. And I was thinking about just putting something out on Twitter, but I'm really trying to get away from like posting original news on there because I don't like Elon Musk and we need to get away from him and blah, blah, blah. So I was
I'm starting to use Threads now.
Yeah, exactly. I want everything I post to be like funneling traffic back to my website. So I was like, I'll just write everything I know into a story on my website and then tweet that out. And then also I didn't want to tweet anything out until I at least reached out to Barhoma and Baez for comment. Because come on, she's like talking about how they're ripping him off, which Barhoma and Barhoma didn't like the charging him $90,000 for the appellate brief, but he actually didn't directly dispute that either. And when you look at totally. The guy that Barhoma brags about having worked under, this Aaron Spolin guy, the LA Times just did a big expose on him. And he's been, he charges inmates, like the families of inmates, guys who are doing like life for murder. He solicits their families and says, oh, I can bring a habeas petition and get them out. And the reporter for the LA Times talked to people in these counties who were like, yeah, that has no chance of ever being passed. The county would never allow that. And Spolin is charging these inmates like $20,000. The number I remember seeing in there was like $19,000 for habeas petition for like poor families with people. So for a celebrity like that and for an appellate petition, I'm like, oh yeah, $90,000 sounds like about right, you know? So,
right.
Yeah,
I
and
know.
then
I believe it. Like, I was all like, I could see that. And,
yeah,
I think, subconsciously, we probably all thought, like, are these lawyers kind of taking advantage of him? But, I'm not saying they're bad people, but you just kind of think that because it's all like, well, I don't, just the way everything with Tory has happened, different lawyers and stuff like that. It's all like, well, rightfully, you would think, like, okay, I think these people are just sucking money out of him and not even really caring.
yeah, totally. They all kind of care in their own way, maybe. But what really sealed it for me, and I had to go back and add this to the article I did too, because I was talking about, it took getting the signed paper, the notice of appearance with Barhoma and Rhonda's signature, and also Tory's signature on there. And then the prosecutors also told me that there was going to be a hearing because somebody wanted to swap in, and it's the new attorney. But what really confirms it is Barhoma's email to me. I mean, he responds, he says, none of it is true. Rhonda has all the case materials from Baez and I. It's like, okay, so she is taking over the case. And then in court later that day, he just told the judge he was confused and didn't know what was going on, and Baez took over. So I just, in Tory's, I don't know, I have empathy for anybody who has to like deal with like a revolving door of like scammy attorneys, and it just seems like, because God, Baez was saying that not only are they getting I keep forgetting his name, Wellborn. Not only are they getting Wellborn in, but Baez was saying, oh, they're going to have another team member. It's somebody from out of state. And you can tell Hereford is kind of like, how many attorneys do you need? And the idea none of them are really doing anything other than just charging him money. It's like kind of sad.
Yeah, I hope, because granted, I don't want to see anybody, being used and, basically taken advantage of. But, he definitely needs the right team of people behind him and somebody in there to really like fight for him, because right now it's not looking good. It does look like a money grab.
Wellborn, like just objectively speaking, Wellborn is the best person for him. Like it would be a mistake for him to go on bring Rhonda in too if you want, but don't like get rid of your experienced California criminal guy who's doing your mitigation package so you can bring this let me out of jail for cruel and unusual punishment thing. Like maybe do that too. Like if you've got money to burn and you want to do that, why not? But definitely keep the guy on who's also doing the mitigation package for your sentencing, So,
right.
But also what he could do, because there's like this idea that lawyers are just like, they have the magic beans. And kind of when you're going into a jury trial, like that's kind of true. I mean, because it does matter who your lawyer is. I was going off about how bad Marco Milla's lawyer was. And Baez kind of has that like magic bean potion to him, but it doesn't apply post-trial. He's not going to get a new trial. It's just all about the appellate law and stuff. So I'm almost like, for how much Baez must be charging him, he should freaking get rid of Baez and just have this Ed Wellborn guy. I mean, what is Baez doing? Like, I doubt he's working for free. Let's just say that. Like,
yeah, I don't believe any of these people are working for free. They're taking a lot of money. And, and the thing is, too, I feel like he kind of went with when it comes to Baez, at least, he went with the name because, the Casey Anthony and stuff like that. And it was kind of like, well, that's a different situation. I really believe when you get a lawyer, you really need to research and really look at what they can do for you. And like you said, it's an appellate court now. It's not the same thing.
Yeah. Totally.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
But Meghann, I wanted to ask you, your final thoughts on like, just the whole being in the courtroom, reporting and now, coming on YouTube and then online. Like, how do you balance all this stuff?
It's a lot. I gotta try to I gotta find my headphones too. I want to go for a walk down at the beach, but I like to listen to music when I do that. I can't find my headphones right now, but you just gotta kind of keep your head down and not just focus on what needs to get done and try not to get too much caught up in the noise. Just kind of focus on what you need to do and just kind of remember what's always worked in the past is just, focusing on the facts and kind of trying to block out the noise. So.
Yes, I definitely agree with you on that. And Meghann, tell the people where they can find you. I already put the link for your website, your YouTube channel. Oh, I didn't say Twitter. I didn't put Twitter down there either. Where can they find you at?
Yeah, Meghann Cuniff. That's my handle for pretty much everything, except TikTok is Meghann M. Cuniff, but I don't really use TikTok too much. But the big one is legalaffairsandtrials.com, and then my own YouTube, which is Meghann Cuniff.
Yes, and make sure you subscribe to our website as well to help her out so she can travel the country, you guys.
Yeah. But yeah, thanks for all the comments. I hope hopefully we answered all questions, but I want to do this more, so subscribe and keep looking for us for sure.
Yes, and definitely I'll be reaching out to you because I'm pretty sure there'll be new developments because the case is August 7th, right? For the sentencing. Yes, August 7th. I know somebody asked and I totally forgot to answer that, but August 7th. And will you be there for that?
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. That'll be, I was remarking to somebody, I was like, his sentencing is going to be insane. I mean, it's probably going to be 2 days and it's just going to be the biggest, just like go on like a keto diet beforehand and get like an exercise regimen like in the weeks before to like prepare kind of shit. Like,
yeah.
It's gonna be crazy.
Yeah, it's gonna be crazy, definitely. Well, Meghann, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you.
Thanks so much.
And make sure you guys subscribe to her channel. Check out her website. Also on Twitter, Meghann Cuniff. You guys can definitely find her there. We appreciate her being here as well. And you guys, hopefully we got to answer some of your questions and stuff like that. Who sued who? Did Tip sue? Oh, the OMG. Are you talking about for the OMG girl dolls and stuff like that? We didn't talk about that too much. Let me see if Meghann, are you still here? Okay, let me see.
So
hey, Meghann.
Yeah, MGA actually initiated the lawsuit. It was T.I. and Tiny sent MGA a letter being like, can you like cease and desist letter, and instead of responding to it, they filed a request for declaratory relief, like basically trying to get a judge to say you don't owe them anything, and that started the litigation. So the last filing on that is MGA's lawyers want like $6 million in attorney fees, which is just like, go fuck yourselves. So gross, dude. That's like $1 million a month. I mean, what the hell? Like, and right now, I checked the filings. In their recent filing, they're fighting over a charge, a $16,000 charge for a binder. And the filings are about like, they're fighting about whether it was organized or not. I'm like, oh my God. But TI's lawyers are appealing it. And I think they need to file in opposition to the $6 million because it is likely that MGA is going to get something. Like TI and Tiny are going to have to pay some attorney fees, but they're not going to do the full $6 million. And the judge is not going to just sign off on that $6 million because the judge was really pissed off at the MGA lawyers for like what assholes they were. And like the whole thing was so over litigated. Like there's like examples of all these dumb sanctions motions that the attorneys would file. Like MGA's lawyers spent like $100,000 in billable hours writing these sanctions motions, and the judge rejected the sanctions, and because they wanted the sanctions to be to reimburse them for the attorney fees and all this stuff, so he rejected it. So now that the trial's over, they're like trying to get that stuff reimbursed again. They're like asking again to get that stuff reimbursed because it's just blanket fee cover all our attorney fees. So the judge is definitely going to be like looking for that stuff. He's not going to include all that stuff in there. Like, God, I hope he doesn't give him anything, but he's probably going to give him something. It won't be
okay. They might get a little something, but not $6 million. Yeah, that's crazy. It wasn't funny how we were just talking about how lawyers could possibly be taking advantage of people. Like that just seems like that's a ridiculous amount. Like that is crazy.
Yeah. Oh God, there's just I don't know, the money floats around the legal world, you know. And because that's one thing to remember is it's not like they've even spent that money. There's a difference between the attorney fees and then the costs. These are attorneys who were charging $900 an hour to like sit at a computer and type shit up and answer emails and shit. It's like, oh, come on.
Crazy. Well, Meghann, thank you for coming back up and explaining that. I do appreciate that.
Yeah, definitely. Happy.
All right. All right, you guys, we're going to go ahead and end the show right there. Make sure you guys hit the like button, subscribe to the channel. Remember, you guys can check out Meghann Cuniff as well, too. Just put in her name. Remember, Meghann with 2 N's, not 1, but 2. All right, you guys, it's been a great show. I definitely appreciated our conversation. And thank you guys for being respectful in the chat as well, too. Also, I caught something like about Nikwa. I seen Vegas comment, but I didn't see what Nikwa said. Definitely shout out to her. Hopefully she's all right. I'll make sure to message her. If you guys can just go ahead and fill up the chat with hearts for her, that would be greatly appreciated. Other than that, y'all, we out of here. Deuces. See y'all later.